What if the version of you that you spend your entire life suppressing is not your enemy, but your missing half? Not the polished version you present to the world, not the one that knows how to smile at the right moment, soften their voice and make themselves palatable, not the one that learned early how to behave, how to blend in, how to be good. I'm talking about the version of you that was pushed underground, the one that made people uncomfortable, the one that was too loud, too intense, too emotional, too ambitious, too angry, too alive, the one that learned very quickly that being authentic had consequences. You don't remember the exact moment it happened. No one ever announces it, but slowly, quietly, you learned which parts of you were acceptable and which were not. And so you adapted. You told yourself it was maturity. You told yourself it was growth. You told yourself you were choosing stability, safety, control. But what if your entire personality is not who you are, but who you learned you had to be to survive? You think you are in control of your life. You believe your decisions are rational, intentional, conscious. But what if most of what you call choice is actually avoidance? Avoidance of rejection, avoidance of conflict, avoidance of the parts of yourself you were taught to fear. There is a reason that in moments of silence, late at night, when the noise fades, something feels off, a hollow tension, a quiet dissatisfaction you can't fully explain, a question that returns again and again. Whose life am I actually living? Carl Jung believed that our deepest suffering does not come from pain itself. It comes from division, from splitting ourselves in two, from cutting off parts of our own psyche and calling it morality. As children, we are whole. We feel everything: anger, joy, curiosity, desire, fear, without hierarchy, without judgment. But wholeness is not rewarded. You were praised when you were compliant, corrected when you were expressive, shamed when you were intense, disciplined when you were inconvenient. So you learned how to read the room. You learned which emotions were allowed and which were dangerous. You learned when to speak and when silence was safer. And piece by piece, you constructed a version of yourself that could function. Jung called this construction the persona, the social mask, the identity you wear to be accepted. At first, the persona is a tool, a strategy, a necessary interface with the world. But something goes wrong when you forget it's a mask. When the role replaces the self, when you no longer remember what you are performing and what you actually feel, you start censoring your instincts, editing your thoughts, diluting your desires. You call it being reasonable, being professional, being emotionally intelligent. But underneath it, something vital is being abandoned. You stop trusting yourself. You stop listening to your body. You start confusing approval with love and control with safety. Think carefully. How often do you say yes when something inside you is screaming no? How often do you smile while resentment builds quietly in your chest? How often do you stay silent to keep the peace while something essential in you withers? You are not being strong. You are disappearing. And what you suppress does not vanish. It goes somewhere. Everything you were told was unacceptable. Your anger, your hunger, your power, your sexuality, your ambition, your wildness sinks beneath consciousness into what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is not a monster. It is simply everything you were forced to disown. And here is the truth most people never face. What you repress does not become weaker. It becomes autonomous. It begins to act without your permission. Your shadow speaks through anxiety, through self-sabotage, through explosive reactions that seem to come from nowhere, through patterns you swear you don't choose, but repeat anyway. You call it bad luck. You call it personality. You call it fate. But Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it destiny. Your shadow does not only contain what you fear, it contains what you need: your vitality, your assertiveness, your creative force, your capacity to say no, your ability to stand alone. When these forces are unconscious, they are dangerous. But when they are integrated, they become choice. Most people spend their lives running from their shadow. They are terrified that if they let it surface, they will become selfish, cruel, destructive. But repression does not make you moral. It makes you fragile. A person who has never confronted their darkness is far more dangerous than someone who knows it intimately. The real danger is not having impulses. The danger is being unconscious of them. And this is where fear enters. The first fear is moral fear. If I accept this part of myself, I will become a bad person. But morality built on repression is not morality. It is obedience. Anger is not cruelty. It is a boundary. Ambition is not greed. It is direction. Desire is not corruption. It is life force. When these energies are denied, they leak sideways. through manipulation, passive aggression, addiction, resentment. Integrated power is clean. Repressed power is toxic. The second fear is deeper. If I am authentic, I will be rejected. And this fear is not imaginary. Yes, some people will leave when you stop performing. Some will be uncomfortable when you stop being predictable. But consider this, you are already being rejected, just not by them, by yourself. Every time you silence your truth for approval, you reinforce the most devastating rejection of all, self-abandonment. You can be accepted for a mask and feel empty, or rejected for your truth and feel alive. There is no path without loss. You must choose who you are willing to disappoint. The third fear is the fear of power. If I claim my strength, I will hurt others. This fear is often inherited from witnessing authority abused, from watching power become domination. So you choose harmlessness. But Jung made a critical distinction. Power denied does not disappear. It turns inward. It becomes depression, self-contempt, a quiet rage against life. True power is not domination. It is presence, boundaries, the ability to occupy space without apology. The final fear is the most existential of all. I don't know who I am without my defenses. Your identity has been built around what you are not. Not angry, not selfish, not intense, not difficult. When those definitions collapse, the ego panics. This feels like death. And in a sense it is. Individuation, Jung's term for psychological wholeness, requires a symbolic death. The death of the false self. Not a breakdown, but a disintegration of the mask. This process is not gentle. It often begins with crisis, burnout, loss, a sense that your life no longer fits. Dreams intensify. Emotions surface. Old memories return. This is not pathology. It is the psyche demanding wholeness. Jung said there is no coming to consciousness without pain. To become whole, you must sacrifice the illusion of who you thought you were. And this does not happen in theory. It happens in action, in risk, in confrontation, in refusing to betray yourself for comfort. Shadow integration is not thinking differently. It is living differently. It begins with pulling back projections. What you judge in others is often what you deny in yourself. Notice what triggers you: arrogance, weakness, coldness, neediness. Ask where this lives in you, not abstractly but concretely. This is not self-attack. It is self-reclamation. Then comes dialogue. Jung used active imagination, a direct engagement with the unconscious. You visualize the part of yourself you fear. You let it speak, not to justify, but to understand. Often what emerges is not a monster, but an exiled protector. Then comes embodiment. If you fear assertiveness, practice saying no without explanation. If you fear visibility, allow yourself to be seen. If you fear desire, honor it without shame. These are not small acts. They dismantle the internal hierarchy that kept you divided. You are not becoming someone new. You are removing what was never you. As integration deepens, life changes. You become less predictable, more grounded, more real. Some relationships dissolve, others deepen. You stop needing approval to exist. Criticism no longer destroys you because there is no fragile mask to protect. Energy returns. The energy once used to suppress now fuels creation. You feel more alive, not euphoric but embodied. You speak more clearly, stand more firmly, love more honestly. You still struggle. You still fall back. That is not failure. Wholeness includes contradiction. But now you know who you are, and that knowledge cannot be taken from you. The person you were afraid to become was never the threat. The threat was living a life cut in half. This is not self-improvement. This is self-recovery. And once you begin, there is no going back to the cage.